Hello, true believers. Another week, another DC animated review from yours truly. My name is Jim. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the 2009 film Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman came out in 2009. It was actually the fourth official animated film from DC, and it was based loosely on the reboot of the character from George Perez when he did the Gods and Mortals arc. I don't know a whole lot about Wonder Woman outside of the movies that I've seen. I've seen both the original Wonder Woman and then the Wonder Woman 84. And surprisingly enough, there are actually some parallels between this and Wonder Woman 84, just a little bit of a role reversal. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But ultimately, I thought this was an okay film. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst. There were some things I really did like. And I'm just a fan of Greek and Norse mythology. That's just who I am. So when you have characters like Thor or Wonder Woman who are able to draw on a wealth of stories already just based on the world they live in, it makes animating a difficult challenge. Not so much from the fact that you have to learn how to draw them because you could do whatever you want, but more from the storytelling aspect. A lot of these stories are already written. Loki is and always is a trickster. So if there's a villain who can somehow shapeshift or do something evil just for evil's sake, it's going to be Loki. You have gods like Ares and Hades and Poseidon, which all have their own objectives and their own worlds that they kind of oversee. And what ends up happening when you get a lot of these movies is you have to find a way to make a character interlace through the story in a way that isn't just a rehashing of mythology, because there is a wealth of ways to get into mythology, not necessarily through Wonder Woman or Thor. So it's always a difficult challenge to try to figure out a way to do that. And I've got to say that in this film, I think they did a really good job of that. As much as it is a story of the Amazons fighting big evil Ares, it is a story about Diana herself trying to come into the world, being sheltered for her whole life and having to learn and experience what it's like to be a human outside of this, beautiful island she lives on where there's no famine or there's no disease or there's not, everything's happy and healthy. Now, there was a little backstabbing early on in the movie as Ares, of course, has to spring out of jail, and that involves a little bit of betrayal. But really, outside of that, you get the sense that this place is just a happy, healthy, fun place to live. And if you live there, it would be heaven on earth and you'd be great. So her having to leave that and go into the gritty, grimy streets of America and see what it's like in the real world definitely adds an interesting twist to an already pretty determined story. Like I said, Ares is going to be bad. Hades is going to be bad. She's going to have to fight him. Cerberus is going to be in there. He's going to be a three-headed dog. Blah, 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 blah. It kind of writes itself, like I said. But I have to say, though, I did like this film quite a bit. There were a couple things that did frustrate me, though. I think the biggest one was that it's a short runtime, which I want to say it's about 73 minutes, according to Wikipedia. 73 minutes of story time, which honestly is about a good size. The problem is they put way too much stuff in here. You got, and there's probably more. I didn't take notes, but just off the top of my woolly head, here's the things I can remember. You got Wonder Woman's origin story, which honestly was good for me because I don't really know it. And considering this was the fourth movie at the time, probably a good thing to reintroduce the character, especially if George Perez had done a lot to kind of reinvigorate her character. So that's good. I'll accept that, and I'm happy that we got an origin story. We get an origin story. We get a contest of her having to break out and be the one to escort the downed pilot Steve Trevor, voiced by Nathan Fillion, who I love. Someone's got to win that contest. We got to see the contest. We get to see her grabbing all of her gear. Then she has to go to this other world. We get the invisible jet. She goes to America. She has to learn about America. She thwarts the plot of evil Ares in an epic battle. Steve shoots down a nuclear bomb. And she fights Ares not once but twice. Once at the beginning of the movie, once at the end of the movie, and it's a lot of stuff going on. The problem is it's coming so fast, you don't really get the impact of it because the next thing's already happening and it's already resolved. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm still trying to process what happened like 15 minutes ago. There's no time for that in this film. And I suspect there will be some people who do appreciate that. I suspect there will be some people who look at this and go, good, it's action packed. I don't want a slog, as you know, Brent loves to say. I want something that's get up, go, get me in the action, get me going. And I think that's where some of these movies miss the mark for me. You got to ask yourself who the audience is. Is it a dopey guy who hasn't seen, probably timeless animated classics, or is it for somebody like Brent who lives, eats, breathes, and sleeps this and can tell you this story 50 different ways and all the different art styles and the artists and blah blah blah? That's who you got to ask yourself. Who is this for? If it's for somebody like me who doesn't know anything, it's a little bit overwhelming, and that's why I say that as good as it is, I think there are some flaws because it's hard to get invested in the character when it's happening so quickly. Oh, and she fights Cheetah at the end too. So I think they really needed to just maybe take like 2 or 3 of those things and kind of like boil them down. As an example, when she gets the tournament, she goes to the tournament and she wins. This is the tournament to determine who is going to bring Steve back to, America, who's going to escort this guy back. She inadvertently or secretly enters the tournament. Nobody knows who they are because they're all wearing those helmets. So you can't tell who anybody is. She wins the tournament. Pretty cool moment. And her mother says, approach the stage, warrior, take off your helmet, reveal to the world who you are. You are going to be our champion. You're going to be our ambassador as you go forth in the world. And it's her daughter. And this just stone face, like, hey, good job. Here's a sword. Here's a lasso. Here's a shield. Here's my crown. Here's the official armor. Bye. And I'm like, this seems like a very big moment in Diana's life. Her whole life up until now has been stuck on this island, not able to go anywhere, sheltered under her mother's care for fear of being hurt. Her mother basically turned the whole island invisible, so nobody could even come or go, even if they wanted to. Nobody's been out for a long time. They got Ares as a prisoner. They're just chilling, hanging out, having a good old time. And you're going to tell me that this big moment is done in, probably 20 seconds, and that's it? There's really no dialogue or discussion. I didn't need a 2-hour documentary on Diana's feelings, but to me, that's a really significant moment. And I feel like if they had done a better job telling that part of the story, maybe her quest would have seemed a little bit more important. I get it, me watching this movie now in 2021, after both Wonder Woman movies have come out, maybe, today's standards, you might say, oh, we kind of know that, but think of this movie coming out in 2009. Think of how, well known the character was, and think of how important of a moment that is in somebody's life. The first time you leave college, the first time you go to school, the first time you get a job, whatever. I just wish it had done with a little better care. I don't want to harp on that moment too much, but I just want to point out that I felt like that throughout. I saw significant things. One of the things I did really enjoy was Steve, and he is a total perv, voiced by Nathan Fillion, who I absolutely adore. And I loved their interaction. Steve, definitely the typical male chauvinist. For the most part, towards the end he does cool down, but within minutes he wants to get Diana drunk so he can make out with her. It's just a typical guy being a pig. Like, I get it. He's an Air Force guy. I work with people in that industry. I get it. That's how they are. That's a very true representation. That said, though, it is kind of funny to me that, he isn't more of a down-to-earth, lighthearted, likable character. You kind of want to root for him just because he's so, piggish. But in terms of, chivalry or, amazing moments, yeah, he does have a little bit of a hero moment at the beginning during the fighter jet fight. He obviously has his big moment at the end when he blows up the nuclear bomb with the invisible missile, which was just laugh-out-loud corny. But all in all, his character is a little weird. What I mentioned earlier in the movie, or this video rather, the little role reversal, Wonder Woman 84, it's Wonder Woman who's actually aware of what's going on in the world, and it's Steve who's like, what is this? How do you wear clothes? What kind of music do you listen to? And in this movie, it was reversed, where Steve is kind of like the cool guy. I'm going to take you to a bar. I'm going to get you tequila. I'm going to show you what, fancy clothes and fancy cars and houses and all that stuff look like. and it was Wonder Woman who was like, what is going on? I have to say, I think they did it way better in Wonder Woman 84 as opposed to this movie, because again, everything was just blown through in a very, very rapid form. And that was kind of like, oh, like there could have been more fun there. But it was a lighthearted moment, and I did enjoy it. I did laugh quite a bit at that. So when you get kind of to the end of everything, everything's wrapped up in a neat bow. Of course, the world is saved. Everybody's happy. Ares is killed, and now he is in Hades. And shout out to the animator who made Hades look like that. I have been playing a lot of games where you see different representations of Hades. I've seen a lot of artwork of what people think Hades looks like. That was a really, really, really cool representation of this fat guy with these really creepy curly sideburns, and just a glutton, the way he was eating all those grapes, and just really like no neck. He kind of reminded me of like Kingpin. That was a really awesome representation, and I like that. I appreciate when these companies take chances on making things outside the bounds, and I did like that. And if you really think about kind of like what Hades is all about, that could make sense of him being a good representation of just this glutton, of just this kind of like, weaselly kind of guy, like the way he tortures Ares in a sense by bringing over Ares' son as a slave and like kicking him on the ground and being disrespectful. But that was cool. I like that. So I think those are the two kind of moments that really stuck out to me. Do I recommend this movie? Yeah, I do. I think it's a good representation of kind of Wonder Woman's character. There was definitely a significant amount of action. Lots and lots and lots of fighting, not just with weapons or like energy beams or whatever. Just a lot of fist fighting, blasting people through walls. The destruction level is with most of these movies, as I'm learning, it's off the charts. The collateral damage is a billionfold. I think you're going to have fun with this one. Just keep in mind that it's a lot to process, and if you're not laser focused, you're going to miss entire subplots because they go by so fast. I mean, within minutes, a villain or something is introduced and then immediately vanquished or immediately resolved and on to the next thing. I will be curious to see as I continue my journey through all these movies with you guys on this channel. I'll be curious to see as if time goes on, if DC gets a little better of having like an overarching arc with sub-arcs, something more traditional kind of storytelling by today's standards. This is almost a movie that you could say, I'm going to turn on and watch chapter 2 to chapter 3 only today. I'm going to watch 7 minutes of animated film, and I will totally understand the beginning, middle, and end of this plot in time. And I think that by today's standards, we can do better than that. So those are my thoughts. Do me two quick favors. Number one, if you haven't already, please, please, please subscribe to Brent's channel. And number two, leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts on Wonder Woman. We'll see what I watch next week, but the streak remains strong. I hope you guys take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys in the funny pages.